In this video, I'm going to give you an overview on one of the most important accessories in my motion control workflow. So apart from the 6-axis robot, this allows me to get into external axis. This allows me to synchronize, different bits of equipment, visual engineering equipment. That includes motors, as well as things like solenoids, triggering lighting, and all that good stuff. So I've been using this for over a year, and I've done some videos in the past about this, giving you an overview how to set it up, how to wire it, how to do the connections, how to sort of integrate it with stepper motors, etc. So I'll leave a link to that playlist. Now, the action servo is a bit of hardware that interfaces between the Lensmaster software and all your external accessories, and it allows you to synchronize those on the timeline with your robot movement. Now, at the core of it, what we have is 8 digital outputs, and those are 12-volt outputs. So it's not variable, you're getting 12 volts out of it. If you need to trigger anything with any other voltages, then you might need to add a relay in line and add some additional voltage if you did need more, or if you need 0 volts, then have a relay that you can just take away the 12 volts. Also, we have 2 motor control outputs. So these, for me, was the actual game changer. And this is one of the key reasons for me getting this action servo, because I can control 2 motor outputs from here to use with my rigs. So I can synchronize that with my robot movement. And that includes, rotary or even linear motion. These were all programmed in Lensmaster and made possible by the use of the action servo. Now, additionally, there are 2 extra outputs here, and these are 12 volts outputs, and it's pretty much status outputs on here. So they're not configurable. You can't use them on your timeline as triggers. These would be used if you wanted to output an LED status, for example, to show the state of your system or the state of the robot. So there's 2 states that are possible here, and one is shooting. So whenever you're running a move on your Lensmaster timeline, from the moment that the move starts till it gets to the end, this will be engaged to say it's shooting. So that would output 12 volts. And if you had an LED connected to that, for example, it can give people a visual reference that the robot is currently in move. Now, just to clarify something, this isn't active when the robot is being jogged around or if it's getting ready. This is only active when you press the shoot button and the move is actually being executed. Now, the second output here is the engaged. Anytime you have a robot connected to your Lensmaster, this engaged output is on. So the moment you click connect and you've established a connection with your robot controller, then this is engaged. So you can have 2 different LEDs, just for, I guess, safety reasons for people on set. And that's an easy way to add some visual awareness into your safety protocols. Now, let's jump over into Lensmaster, and I want to show you a few things that will make your life a little bit easy when you're using the action servo, especially when it comes to motor control. Now, just before we dive into that, just want to show you the setup right here. We have a stepper motor just here with a 5-to-1 gearbox. That's the ratio on the gearbox just here. That is very important. That is connected to my driver box, so my stepper hub, and I've actually got these for sale on my website. You could check it out if you wish to. So this is connected to here, and this is really for modularity and plug and play. I like to pick things up, get to a location, plug one cable in, plug one cable out, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going into my driver box, and what I'm got is a connection here to the action servo on Moto 1. This is a 2-axis or a 2-output stepper driver hub. If you want to check that out, like I say, there'll be a link there for you. So in Lensmaster, I'm in my action servo controls. As we can see here, this is for your digital outputs. That's quite self-explanatory and covered in my previous videos. So if we go into Moto 1, for example, setting this up is going to be quite important to get accuracy. Accuracy and repeatability here really hinges on a few key settings. So if we jump into the settings, first of all, we're going to check the motor type. So we're looking for positioning. This is where we're going to do positioning, whether it's rotary positioning or a linear axis that we're moving with the motor. That will be key. The micro steps here and the revolutions. This setting is also an important one, because if you've got variations between Lensmaster and what you've got set on your driver, then you won't have accuracy, depending on how you want to set your degree of movements. So 6400 steps on here, that'll be set exactly the same on your driver. So that is important. That's the first important thing for accuracy. The next one is your gear ratio. And in here, we've got this set up to 5:1. So I will show you this in a second, and I'll kind of explain this a little bit further. Now, the rest of the settings below doesn't have any impact on accuracy, but it does for speed. So if you want to set a maximum speed that you want your motor to run on the timeline, then you'll set this up here in max speed. You can set your motor position to degrees or percentage. Now, degrees is obviously what you'd use if you're using rotary motion, if you're using turntables or anything that goes around on a rotary axis. If you're using the new motor to drive a linear stage or a linear actuator, for example, then you might want to use a percentage so you know how far you are, how where you are based on the positioning of that as a percentage rather than a degree of motion. Next up, you can set your max and min positioning. So you can really rotate this as much as you want, and that will determine what the scale on your jogging obviously would be. If you're not going to jog this more than 360 degrees, there is no point setting min max for 1600 plus or minus, because then once you get to your jogging scale or your jogging slider, then the resolution that would mean that one tiny move would jump you quite a lot. Now, this is only applicable when you're jogging the motor. It doesn't apply on the timeline. So that will be a different speed. So if you're setting up moves, for example, and you wanted to increase the speed just to make the process faster, you can set a higher speed in here, obviously up to a maximum limitation of what your motor and your gearbox configuration can actually achieve. So now we have the ability to jog the motor in either direction, either clockwise or anti-clockwise. We also have the ability to set specific angles. For example, if we were to hit 0, we can return to 0. And as you can see, we have that reference line just here. You just straighten that off for you. So if we were to take that, so for example, we just wanted to go to 90 degrees. And this is a really, really quick way of getting to a specific angle in a very quick and efficient manner, as opposed to be hunting with the jogging slider. So yeah, there we are with 90 degrees, and we can go 360, and that will take us exactly to 360, bring that back to 0. And we can see that the accuracy here is pretty spot on. What I'm going to do just right now is just adjust this gearbox ratio. I'm just going to put it to 4:1. I'm just going to take it out of where it's meant to be and kind of show you how it affects that. So if I go to 90 degrees, then we can see that is not actually 90 degrees where it's at. So it is really out of sync because we haven't set the correct parameters in our software. So we can now go ahead and add this to the timeline by just hitting this button right here. And we can see we've added an external axis for motor 1 just onto the timeline here. And then we can go ahead and actually animate that. Now the shortcut for setting up an external axis is E. So if we hit E, we will set a keyframe just here. And if we go to the end of our move, for example, we can then jump back to the widget. There's a couple of ways we can do this. We can actually either just set another keyframe here, and then we can go ahead and adjust the parameters for that keyframe. So we can go ahead and put the position in at 0 degrees, hit enter, and now we've adjusted it there. Or we can go to the jogging menu, jog it to that space that we want if we don't know exactly where we're going to be or where we want to be. And then we can just add the keyframe when it's at that position. Also, just to demonstrate what we spoke earlier about the shooting and engage inputs. So for example, I'm going to hit get ready, and we have no output here for this one. But as soon as we hit shoot, we can see for the duration of that motion, of that movement, we have this illuminated. Now, one final thing that I want to show you about, and every time I use this, I can't stop laughing. It's kind of comical in a way. So if we go to motor 2, where I've got another type of motor setup, if we go into the settings, we can see here I've got the RC servo motor position. And I haven't really used this in anger or in real life, but it is there, and I thought I'd just mention it for you. So here we've got an RC servo just here, as you'd find, and we can actually use this. And the cool thing about this, if you just wanted to use it as an accessory, like a gripper, for example, is that you don't need anything extra. You just need a cable connecting your RC. You don't need a cable connecting your RC servo directly to your action servo, so no drivers involved. The thing is, though, obviously it's got its limitations. It's only got, you know, a certain degree of motion. I think it's 0 to 180 degrees, and so we can actually, you know, jog this, as we can see on the timeline here, and we can animate that on the timeline as well. So if we wanted to use this as a gripper, for example, for something that is not too heavy, I suppose, depending on the specifications of your actual servo motor, we can do that. So let's go ahead and grip this bad boy, and you can use it as a dropper. Simple. I don't know why it makes me laugh. It's a bit, you know, like I say, it's a bit comical, but it can get you out of a pinch, so you don't have to actually have like a pneumatic actuator or pneumatic gripper if you're in a pinch, right? And that is pretty much it for this video. If you did find this useful, leave me some feedback, and if you have any additional tips, drop it in the comments. Let me know. See you guys on the next one.